Assalamualaikum and good afternoon. Welcome to ELTC's webinar entitled Augmented Reality and Virtual Reality in English Language Teaching. I'm Dr. Nur Fazli binti Sadun, the moderator for today's webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, augmented reality and virtual reality are constantly expanding into various fields of education, including English language teaching. We are grateful to have with us Dr. Harwati Hashim from University Kebangsaan Malaysia to share her knowledge and experience on this topic. For your information, this webinar will start with a presentation from our speaker and is followed by a Q&A session from the audience. Let me give you a brief introduction on Dr. Harwati Hashim. She currently holds a position as the Deputy Dean of Undergraduate at the Faculty of Education, University Kebangsaan Malaysia, or UKM, specializing in Technology Enhanced Language Teaching, or TEL. Her areas of concentration are Mobile Assisted Language Learning, MAL, Innovative Pedagogies, the use of technology in language teaching and learning, and language learning strategies. She's a certified Apple Professional Learning Provider, Apple Teacher, and Apple Teacher Suite Playgrounds. So let us welcome Dr. Harwati Hashim. How are you, Doctor?
Fine, thank you very much. How are you, Doctor?
Alhamdulillah, I'm fine. Glad to have you here. So without further ado, I hand over the session to Dr. Harwati.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Nur Fazlin. And Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon to all participants that we have today with us. I'm very glad and honored to be invited to have this sharing session, which is organized under ALTC, talking about augmented reality and virtual reality in English language teaching. So if everyone is ready, please allow me to share my screens and to begin with my uh, presentation and my sharing. Okay. All right. I'm currently sharing my screen. Let me just double check. Okay, Alhamdulillah. Again, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Dr. Nur Fazlin, who has given a little bit of introduction about me. And Alhamdulillah, today I'm very honored to be with everybody today to share on augmented reality and virtual reality in English language teaching. And currently, I am the Deputy Dean of the Undergraduate Studies at the Faculty of Education, University Kebangsaan Malaysia. And as what mentioned by Dr. Nur Fazlin just now, I am an Apple Professional Learning Provider. I am also a certified Apple Teacher Swift Playground as well as Apple Teacher. So when we talk about augmented reality and virtual reality, it is a very interesting area. Name it augmented reality, name it virtual reality. But what we want to look at today is basically the use of AR, VR in the English language teaching, which is our specialization. And I assume here with us today are all English language teachers or probably any other educators who are interested in listening and getting to know more about AR and VR. And for my sharing today, I think I have about 45 minutes plus Q&A, about more or less 1 hour for me to share about this AR and VR in English language teaching. And there are a few areas that I would like to share on and I would like to cover today, which are, I'm going to focus on these 5 main areas to begin with, because I think what important in integrating AR and VR, especially in English language teaching, is to understand the concept of AR and VR. And therefore, I would like to share with everybody the overview of what is augmented reality, what is virtual reality, and we often have these misconceptions of AR and VR. So therefore, I'm going to touch a little bit on the differences between AR and VR. And because our main interest is to use AR and VR in English language teaching, basically in our teaching and learning process. So I think it would also be important for us to look at related theories. Then only we could understand why do we need to use AR, why do we need to use VR, and what are the potential benefits that we can get from in the integration of AR and VR in English language teaching. Um, and after that, I will also elaborate a little bit on the impacts of using augmented reality and virtual reality in English language teaching, and probably a little bit of exposure or choices of tools that we have that are available for everybody to probably start exploring the tools for creating AR and VR. So basically, I'm going to touch these 5 areas. It's quite challenging within these few minutes. So I hope everybody just buckle up, sit down, enjoy the presentation. Okay, talking about overview of augmented reality and virtual reality, I think it has been familiar to everybody. It is not something that is alien. It is something that we keep on um, exposed to today, especially what we have today. Name it innovation, name it innovative approaches, name it what in whatever area of education or across disciplines. What most important is in the area of English language teaching, and it has become so common that everybody want to venture into augmented reality and virtual reality. But first of all, let's us look at what augmented reality is and what virtual reality is. Firstly, augmented reality, or we usually call it as AR, augmented reality, AR. Uh, Probably you have seen this before. I assume, I do understand that we have some audience from YouTube as well. So kindly share your thoughts in the chat or in the comment sections. Have you ever seen this anywhere on the net? Well, definitely you've never experienced it. It's like way back in um which year this first augmented reality was introduced. It was called Sensorama, and this Sensorama, this is what it's like lah. It looks like there's a chair, there's a sitting place whereby the users look into and see the augmented images, which actually produced using 3D, wide vision, motion, colors, stereo sounds, aromas, wind, and vibrations. And this is what the first augmented reality was way many years back, lah. Okay, and it is called Sensorama. And I'm sure, maybe if you are of my Gen Z, or of the young ones, young teachers, you have probably played this game before, this Pokemon Go, and this Pokemon Go was very familiar uh, before, and of course it is still quite famous now, but there are a lot more augmented reality games coming in now, as compared to previous, whereby there was only one Pokemon Go and everybody was like playing. It's like it was like a trend. It was in at that time, and everybody was playing Pokemon Go. And Pokemon Go was is one of the augmented reality game. All right. Um, what is actually augmented reality or AR? How do we define AR? If we were to understand, AR is the technology in which virtual objects, we are talking about virtual objects, which are blended with the real world. So we have the virtual objects and we have the real world in front of us, and they interact with each other. So that is augmented reality. We are in the real world, okay, stepping on in the real world, but things, objects in front of us could be virtual. Okay, that is what it meant by augmented reality. Okay, and Zoe et al. 2008 says that a technology that allows computer-generated virtual imagery to exactly overlay physical objects in real time is what we call augmented reality. So we have like overlaying images, even on physical objects, but overlay image, and that is what another definition of augmented reality. And I think you probably have seen this type of apps. Maybe you have tried IKEA apps, whereby if you were to buy furnitures, you can somehow download IKEA apps and try to place. Let's say if you want to buy sofa, you can just choose whichever sofa in the apps and try this augmented reality feature and try to locate the sofa in your room or in your space to see whether it is suitable, not suitable, match your wall color and whatnot. And if not, you can just go on and proceed with with other options. So that one example of augmented reality. And this one is example whereby, let's say, if you want to look for places, so if you were to just put your camera to this is location based markers, whereby when you scan you can see things pop up, like if you were to look for transit, if you were to look for hotels, if you were to look for restaurants or grocery stores, everything popping up lah in your apps. This is another examples of augmented reality in marketing, especially whereby people used this type of technology for, let's say, customers who want to find products. Where do we go about looking for products? So this is another example. And now we do have, like this one is the one that I mentioned just now, the IKEA, where you can actually place the sofa and to see whether it matches your themes, for example, or your background or your wall, or whether the size of the sofa is suitable for the space, with the space that you have, with that limited space you have. For example, maybe you should go for something smaller, or maybe you can go for something bigger. That is also be done with augmented reality. And I think this one is quite current, whereby now when people start selling glasses online, whereby last time if we were to go and buy glasses, we need to try and put it on to see whether it matches our figure, and thus buying online is very difficult. However, we can see that people start venturing and exploring the use of augmented reality for customers to choose frames. They can just select frames and choose and put it on virtually on their face to see whether the frame matches their figure, their face or not. So they can just and make choice without physically coming to the store and physically select the frames. So now people life is getting easier, you see. So people use augmented reality to do that kind of things, especially in marketings and whatnot. But it is life anyway, especially when it comes to buying frames and whatnot. Well, before this, we have to go to the shop, try one by one, and then we get headache because of trying like frames, like one after another. Okay. Um, what are the types of augmented reality? There are so many types of augmented reality, but you need to understand this, that before coming into exploring the use of AR, we need to understand that there are few types of augmented reality. Uh, and there are two, which are marker based and also markerless augmented reality. So I think the most common ones that we usually see that is being used in classroom is the marker based, which is the easiest one to be prepared by teachers. We'll go further into that. This marker based, as what you can see from the right, it's my okay, it's my left side, but it's your probably right side now. Uh, that you can see that there is an image and there is another overlay image on the marker based for marker based AR, and this picture is taken from Filali 2019. Whereby if we were to look at another types of markerless based AR, where there is no marker, there's no need of any images, but it is embedded on the location. So the overlay images are actually embedded on the location base. For the first one, if you can see the first picture, location based AR is where all what you call the overlay images are actually embedded onto the location. Projection based is where it is projected. Could be using projector, or it doesn't need any device except for the projector lah, because it is projected by a bigger screen. So as for the superimposition, it is something that is quite comprehensive. Is the I would say the most comprehensive augmented reality, whereby it is a superimposition based on incomplete structure, like the one you have here, incomplete structure. So superimposition can be done using augmented reality. So these are two main uh, types of augmented reality. One is marker based, one is markerless based. And if I can tell you that the most common one is marker based and another one is location based. Those two are what we commonly see lah. And I would not say that it is very easy to be prepared, but it is doable. Okay. Um, Now, as opposed to augmented reality, what is virtual reality? Because I'm covering two things today. It seems similar, but it's not the same. AR and VR. These two have two different functions. Each of it has different function. All right, let's look at what virtual reality is. Now, what is virtual reality? So as compared to augmented reality, virtual reality is what we usually assume it comes with this type of device, with a Google. You see, with this boy, and then you can see he's wearing this Google, and it is anything virtual happening, that he is viewing now. Anyone else is not seeing, only this boy. Okay, so this is our first understanding of what VR is. When we talk about VR, we always say that, oh, so we need that Google, yeah, this VR Google, we say. All right. The use of computer modeling and simulation that enables a person to interact with an artificial three-dimensional, or what is called 3D visual or other sensory environment, is what we define VR is. It is the use of computer modeling and simulation. So basically, when we talk about VR, it involves a lot of simulation type of materials as well as modeling, because it creates the 3D experience using 3D visuals and sensory or probably other sensory environment. And this could probably lead to this thinking, oh, VR is more complicated than AR. All right, hold to that. Okay, unlike augmented reality, virtual reality is a fully digital experience that can either simulate or differ completely from the real world. Now, if we were to recall back the definition of AR, we are in the real world. It's just the images are virtual. We have these overlays, images onto real world. So unlike augmented reality, virtual reality is fully digital experience. Okay, so it is like a 360 degree in a different world. Okay, it is not is completely out from the real world. Okay, so that's why it is called virtual reality. It is very virtual in a way. It is not real life. That's what it meant. Okay, um, what are the types of VR? So this one you have to understand. Not all VR comes with Google. Okay, when we talk about VR, when I said VR to my teacher trainees, they will always say it's very complicated, doctor, because we need to buy the Google. I know that Google is not that expensive. You can buy it online for 30 ringgit, 37 ringgit, but somehow or other, they said, oh, you need to have that Google, VR Google to experience this virtual reality if we were to embed this into teaching and learning. But there are actually three types of virtual reality. It's either it is fully immersive, meaning that you are totally immersed in the virtual reality environment or experience, as what you can see from the first picture, the girl. She is fully immersed in the virtual world. So she's not, she doesn't aware what is happening in her real world. Okay, but she is totally fully immersive in her world, in the virtual world. And we do have another type of VR which is called semi-immersive. Semi-immersive is where you can see the second picture, the car. You are in the real world. It's just you, it's a simulation type of experience, yeah. Usually we use this in, let's say, a pilot, yeah, if they want to fly aircraft, a simulation based activity, or like the second picture where the boy is in the car, racing car, and then there's road circuit in front, whereby as if like he is actually racing. So that is semi-immersive. And another type of VR is non-immersive, whereby you are still in the real world. It's just you have your avatar. We call it avatar. You have your own avatar. You take charge of controlling your avatar in a different environment, in a virtual environment, like playing PS4. So that is non-immersive VR. So you have three, which is fully immersive, semi-immersive, non-immersive. So just to highlight here that you have three options in the integration of VR in your classroom. If you are very good at using technology, you can try fully immersive, and that can be done using 360 video. If not, you can step down with semi-immersive. If not, you can begin with non-immersive. So these are three virtual reality types of virtual reality that you can explore for teaching and learning. And these are some examples of virtual reality games that I think if you are from the Z generation, you may be familiar with all this. I think we are all familiar with Google Street View. Okay, I would say that that is the minimum application, the least that you can use for your teaching activities. You can use Google Street View to bring the non-immersive experience to your learner. Google Street View, because you can view the streets, and then let's say they want to give directions, you can open Google View and talk about giving direction, for example. We have Open Simulator. This one is quite, I would say, adult type of applications. May not be suitable for underage because it brings off, the culture is quite need sort of control and management from the teacher. And then I think you probably have heard of Second Life. Second Life is very famous overseas. Everyone is they buy assets, they communicate in their virtual world, they have this properties buying and whatnot, but using crypto coins, so everybody was like, it is a metaverse world. Okay, in Second Life, in fact, SimCity was very famous before. I think back in 2000, I've started I think we talk about third life, right? Second life, sorry, second life. I think it started back when I was in my masters. I think 2008, 2006. It was very famous, obviously, when we talk about second life, and all these are actually virtual reality experience. And SimCity is quite an interesting game. And SimCity brings this what do you call non-immersive virtual reality. We have Minecraft, okay, as simple as Minecraft. If you were to venture into Minecraft, actually, if you were to use Minecraft with your students, you are actually using the integration of virtual reality. And now, this one is very famous among the young ones, Genshin Impact. My daughter plays it all the time, and I'll have to argue whenever we want to watch TV. So she keeps on playing Genshin Impact. And this is another example of non-immersive virtual reality experience, whereby the PS4, when they play, they have their own avatar, they control, they are in the virtual world, they are very much immersive, even though it is um, 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 without the use of Google VR just now. Yeah. Okay. Now, what are the differences between AR and VR? If we were to have misconceptions, if we don't really understand what AR is, what VR is, we tend to have misconception between AR and VR. AR, again, if I were to highlight, is overlays digital images onto user view of the real world, often through smartphone. Yeah, we use smartphone with certain particular apps to generate or to read our AR materials. As compared to AR, VR primarily, I'm not saying that it is all the time with headset or VR Google, but primarily use headset if you want to have that fully immersive experience. Okay. For AR, user is able to interact with the real world and virtual world, meaning that as we are using AR, we are still physically moving in the real world, except for the overlays images. Those are the virtual world. For VR, we completely shut down our real world, and it makes us think that we are in the virtual world. We are now no longer like I myself in UKM now. If I were to play Genshin Impact now, I'm no longer in UKM. I'm playing Genshin Impact in Japan, for example. So it's in a different world. AR definitely enhance experience, and VR create its own reality. AR users can physically move in the environment because as they are playing the overlay digital images, they move around. What more if it is location-based markers or location-based ARs, they have to move around to find like Pokemon Go, right? As for VR, users cannot physically move in the environment. They are basically they move in the virtual world. They are not moving in the real world, but those who are with VR, they move in the virtual world. So these are among the I would say main differences among AR and VR. Of course, as we talk further, we can see that both bring immersive experience. That one is no doubt between AR and VR. So look at how each AR and VR could bring potential benefits to English language teaching. Okay, so let's look at the related theories and the integration of AR and VR and ELT, especially when we talk about English language teaching. This is very important because we want to really tap on the pedagogical aspects of using AR and VR in the integration of the integration of AR and VR in ELT lessons. Okay, now when we talk about AR and VR, we cannot run away from this constructivist theory. Name it cognitive constructivism, name it social constructivism. Why cognitive constructivism? Because learners, as mentioned by Chapney et al., learners, this AR involve the learner in authentic inquiry and active observation when they observe, because when they play AR or VR, it is authentically brings experience to the learner. So it involves active observation. So understanding concept, it becomes easier. Applications of knowledge become easier. So it involves cognitive constructivism. So then Levy and Did 2014 said it facilitates a better opportunity for the learner to be able to build personal explanation rooted in their intrapersonal experience and interpersonal interaction. So it involves social constructivism because if they were in, let's say we're talking about VR, if they are immersed in the virtual world, they are now trying to relate to the uh, personal experience. Okay, what do they understand, how to use different types of communication, for example, and it involves virtual social constructivism, okay, where they have social interaction even though it is in a virtual world. Because you see, like for example, as simple as Genshin Impact, when they want to solve problems, they have to communicate things with this like Sifu or Master, I don't know, all these names that they have in Genshin Impact, all sorts of names um, they have to communicate. So they have some sort of social interactions in the virtual world. So they use the language. So in another way, they learn from the more knowledgeable other. And it involves sort of scaffolding as well. What more the zone of proximal development. Okay. And another theory that is very related to the use of AR and VR is the experiential learning. Remember, because we want to bring an immersive experience to the learner. So when we talk about experiential learning, we always refer to Cope's experiential learning cycle, whereby it involves concrete experience in experiencing what they are learning. Like for example, language, especially when they learn the language, they'll have this concrete experience either in AR or using VR. Then it has to somehow bring some element of reflections as well as observations, because let's say if they were to play Genshin Impact just now, they observe how other people speak and how they should respond, even though the responding part is automatized, even though usually game it is automatized, but they somehow observe how their avatar respond to questions, for example. It involves abstract conceptualization and it involves active experimentation. So this is where the language part comes in, whereby we need to also understand this communicative competence model. Okay, in this cognitive competence, we talk about discourse competence. There are four elements of this discourse competence, which is the student should be able to have like linguistic competence, pragmatic competence, intercultural competence, as well as strategic competence. So in using AR and VR, it brings this immersive experience whereby it should be helping the students to enhance their name it linguistic competence, name it pragmatic competence, name it intercultural, especially because it's quite challenging for us teaching English in Malaysia. We keep on saying that the students have little opportunity to practice the language. What more if they comes from rural school? What more if the rest of the friends are not able to speak English? They are, let's say, one or two, only three, four can speak English very well. The rest reluctant to speak the language, and it's somehow challenging to bring this intercultural competence among the students. So with this immersive experience, it somehow facilitate and enhance their discourse competence by exposing a lot of intercultural elements so that they can understand in using the language, okay, as well as strategic competence. Okay, moving on to why AR and VR and ELT. So this brings because just now we talk about what AR and VR, and then we understand the differences. Because why do we need to understand the differences? Each one has its pros and cons, its strengths and weaknesses as well. So we have now somehow realized I only show you three main theories related to AR and VR. There could be more depending on the objective of or what we are looking at. So basically, this AR and VR are related to constructivist theory, related to experiential learning, and what more? We are talking about ELT, so therefore, my highlight was on discourse competence. This elements of discourse competence and communicative ability. But why AR and VR in English language teaching? Because we have seen people using AR and VR in medic, for example, VR in pilot, for example, flying aeroplanes, probably AR in architecture, where they use superimposition to complete structure and whatnot. But what does it take for ELT, English language teaching? How do we actually fully leverage AR and VR in English language teaching? Okay, uh, we can actually say that this augmented reality and virtual reality brings these four main. I would say if we were to list, there are a lot more lah, definitely. But the four main advantages of integration of AR and VR, because it brings number one, authentic learning. It is something that is genuine. We use for our learners because like for example, if we talk about having the students immersive into a country, like for example virtual reality, where they have to virtually have a tour in Japan, for example, it is something that is authentic. It is not something that we have to create in our classroom. Even though we can do that, definitely it is another way, another approach of providing authentic experience to our learners. And there is some sort of scaffolding element in using augmented reality and virtual reality. Maybe if I were to show you example after this, you can see how lesson can be scaffolded when it comes to integrating these two technologies. And I kept on mentioning this immersive learning experience. Without doubt, it is always what we want, especially when we teach English. It is always the issue of the students are not exposed to the real usage of the language. So we want to bring this immersive experience. We want the students to be there to use the language. Uh, and it is very contextualized. Therefore, when we use AR and VR, we can say that learning is very contextualized. Yeah, it is more of real world, and therefore it is very contextualized because it is something near to them. Like for example, Minecraft, like for example, Pokemon Go, something that is very contextual, that is around them. So we don't have to like create aliens for them to use, for them to learn. Okay, this is one example of the use of AR where we can use for English language teaching specifically um, to do sort of probably storytelling. So this is one example. If I can play, so you can see, this is location based augmented reality. So you can ask your students to create this. We'll talk about device after this. Yeah, if students come with their own device, definitely it's an ideal situation whereby they can create this augmented reality. They can do it in at home. Probably they can test and they can record themselves telling a story using their own creations, like for example this one, their own characters and whatnot. um and this is another examples of using augmented reality whereby probably teachers, if you teach process and procedures, for example, talk about how biomass power station works. It's very difficult for us to bring our students to a power station. Safety wise, it's not recommended. If we were to show them video, yes, they can see the video, but the immersive experience is not there, because we want them to feel that they are there, for them to feel the experience, the learning, what the content of what they are learning. So this is one example of using augmented reality to talk about biomass power station. So imagine if students, and now is still the ideal stage, imagine if students can create this type of augmented reality and record themselves talk about process and procedures. So they are immersed in the uh, this world. If you can see, it is on real world. This is a location-based augmented reality, real world with overlay digital images. Okay, these are created using Reality Composer. Okay, so students can talk about this, using this augmented reality materials. Okay, this is one example. Okay, moving on. Alright, this is an example whereby, let's say, we want to teach students how to repair a sink. Yeah, and it's very difficult in schools. When you are at schools, you want to bring students to toilet, show them the sink, or you have to have like this what do you call, sink model to bring into classroom and ask your students to demonstrate or to describe how to repair a sink. You can use augmented reality as well, and that can be brought into classroom using this immersive experience of augmented reality. So this is another example where using jig space, students can just student can just use this location based augmented reality and check how to repair a leaking sink. Like for example, this one. This one is, I would say, one of example of scaffolded activity whereby you can see the arrow. So they have to tap one by one and check. Tap the arrow and check what's happening. What is that? Why do we need to turn this tab? And then what is that handle? So it is somehow scaffolded in terms of how the lesson could be conducted. At the same time, the student learn to describe the steps in repairing the sink, for example. Okay, and this is another example. You can see the instruction over there. All right. As simple as that one was an example showed using iPad, but as simple as using mobile device, handphone, and this is using Augment, So this is another example which can be used in language teaching, English language teaching, whereby probably students are required to somehow give directions, probably, or probably they need to describe buildings. Probably there are so many things that you can tap on when using augmented reality. These are all available images, overlay images that is actually free to choose in Augment, in one of the apps. I think because this one is the more of the awareness or sharing of the use of AR and VR. I think after this, definitely ELTC is looking forward to having more of in-house training on of each application of augmented reality, so that English language teachers are able to use them in your classroom. So this is another example. This is because the one that I showed before, um, using iPad. So this one is using mobile phone, yeah, just to compare a few devices. Okay. Now there is another apps which actually bring this immersive experience, which is Hologo. But Hologo is a paid version application whereby you need to pay for you to experience the available augmented reality. But it is very interesting because you can go to Coliseum, you can go to Rome, you can go to Amazon to experience different learning materials. Okay, and without doubt, there are a lot of opportunities to engage with native speakers in real life scenarios without real time stress, I would say. Because let's say, if like for example, if they were to experience immersive English language learning using virtual reality, remember the one that I mentioned just now, let's say on the non-immersive experience, the one with, let's say, Genshin Impact. When they play, there is no, because English language is always um, um, uh, stressful for those who are with low proficiency level. So if they were to use this virtual reality experience, it is without doubt is a uh, no real time stress, because nobody is judging them. No one is judging, no one is telling whether it is right or it is wrong, because they are in the virtual world. They are actually communicating with people virtually in the games. So it's an advantage for our learners, I would say. And from basic communication in the target language to communication for specific academic or students' immersions and presence in a virtual environment, those are what we could leverage or take advantage when using AR and VR in English language teaching. Definitely, it create better learning environment and experience. You can try, if you have never tried before, try one and see what are your students' responses, and see how do they react in terms of their learning experience and the environment of using AR and VR. Okay, and I think I have been highlighting this. This creating immersive experience is what most important in using AR and VR. And this is one example of language tools, which is offered. Of course, you have to pay. You can see that 3 plus, as young as 3 years old, they can start trying to use this Mondly. And this Mondly is basically learning language in Second Life. It is called Second Life because it is virtual. Basically, whatever virtual is what we call Second Life. Uh, you learn languages in VR, in virtual reality. So there's no stress. You have your own avatar. You can create your own character. You are immersed in the world of this Mondly, and then you learn the language without stress. So I would say this is quite cheap. Um, it's 499 USD. I think it's per month. Yeah. Yeah. So perhaps if you think that you want to try something new with your learners, teachers can try to buy one for a month, for a specific month, for students to try out together in classroom. I don't know. That's very subjective for this on this cost and spending money. All right. Let's look at tools for creating AR. Oh dear. Am I still audible? Okay. Let's look at tools for creating AR. And these are the tools. Let me double check because suddenly it's blackout here. I hope I am still okay, audible, right? Tools for creating AR. Okay, there are a few tools that can be used to create AR, as the one that I showed you just now were actually augment, the A is augment, and then we have reality composer, we have AR maker, we have augment, we have metaverse, we have Mlipar, we have Vuforia, a lot of softwares that can be used for you to create augmented reality. And what do we need to develop marker-based augmented reality? What we need is, sorry, it was like blackout here in the faculty. Luckily, I use my own internet connection. Okay, what do we need to develop marker-based augmented reality? We need trigger image, we need video, and voila, we have one simple basic AR that could be used in our classroom. And if we were to develop a location-based augmented reality, this is it requires a little extra, I would say, effort, because you need to find a 3D models, you need images if you want to. You can also embed videos in augmented reality, and you need text, as the one that you can see just now, the biomass power stations. That is location-based AR. The 3D models where the solar power and whatnot, those are taken from available free 3D models. These are amongst that probably software, I would say, that are famous. If you were to use augmented reality, you need to try to venture into looking at 3D models software. We have Blender, we have Sharper 3D. Most of the free models I took from Sketchfab. Sketchfab also offers quite a few, I would say, free 3D models that can be used. Could be very basic, but at least something free. But if they are selling, you can still buy. Probably it's like $1, not that expensive. They have as cheap as $1. No harm buying. All right. And let's look at tools for creating virtual reality. These are among tools. There are a lot definitely, but I can highlight only these two because I tried these two only. I've never tried the rest. So if you have that experience creating virtual reality using other apps, by all means feel free to share. But I only tried these two, SketchUp and Unity. Otherwise, I've never tried other software in creating virtual reality. This is SketchUp. Uh, this is Unity. Examples. You actually Unity you can use to develop many things: games, augmented reality, virtual reality. A lot of things to explore. If I were you, request ELTC to have this sort of training using Unity. Okay, all right, client promo. All right, and as simple as using gamefruit.com. This was actually introduced by one of my master students. This is what we call non-immersive experience. I know Minecraft is also one of it. But this one is very simple. You can try gamefruit.com. The students can create their own avatar, and they can create their own story, and they have this non-immersive, I would say, non-immersive experience, as if like playing game, right? Uh, 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 of course, it involves coding and whatnot, but a very simple coding. This is very simple. You can try this with your students, especially if you are teaching the young ones, the primary school students. This is what I've learned from my master students. Yeah? He's teaching in secondary school. Okay, maybe a little bit of wrap up, I would say, because this is already 3:20. Maybe we need to open for Q&A after this. I can see a lot of questions popping up. Yeah, okay. If I were to highlight, in order for us to integrate augmented reality and virtual reality in um, um, English language teaching, we have to really look at our technological pedagogical content knowledge. If you can see here, we want to move from surface learning to deep learning. So if it is according to SAMR, we should start this augmented reality and virtual reality should start from TPEC level 2. Augmentation, modification, in rev definition. And so this is where we can tag along with higher order thinking skills. Maybe as low as understanding, because augmentation, right? Understanding concepts, probably. If they were to have sort of virtual tour, they can understand concepts of whatever place, for example, and then apply. If they were to start communicating, applications, analyze, evaluating, and even the highest order thinking skills, which is creating lah. So if we were to use augmented reality and virtual reality, we can move from TPEC level 2 augmentation to TPEC level 4 SEMAR redefinition SMR, whereby uh, it move from even it is for English language teaching from just a surface learning the language, but you bring your students a deeper learning experience whereby it becomes immersive. With that, it hopes to help this to facilitate the students to improve and to enhance their communicative ability, the one that we talk about discourse ability just now, competence and whatnot, pragmatic, linguistic, intercultural, as well as strategic competence. So yeah, I think what's next before I end my sharing and open for Q&A with Dr. Fazlin, the moderator. The moderator. I think what's next is that you have to start venturing AR and VR because this mixed reality is already waiting. It's just whether we are ready or not in Malaysia, or in terms of technology availability, it's coming. So we cannot run away from it. So if you have not started using augmented reality, if you have not started trying virtual reality, what more mixed reality coming in? And we have students who are very demanding, looking at friends, at their peers, trying so many things, so many approaches with their teachers, and yet they have little opportunity of using all that in their classroom. With that, I think that's all from me. I am open for any suggestions. If you have any things to discuss with me, if you think that you have issues to be highlighted with me, feel free to contact me at harati@ukm.edu.my. So I hope I have given a very beneficial sharing today and a lot of information to begin with AR and VR and ELT before ELTC move as the way forward with specific tools and whatnot. So thank you so much. I think I'm going to hand over to you, Dr. Fazlin. Yeah, thank you.
All
Maybe I
right.
should
So
stop sharing.
thank All right, so thank you so much, Dr. Harwati, for such engaging presentation. So we will ask a question. We'll post few questions from our webinar participants. Right, the first one comes from Miss Shaliana Jamaluddin. All right, so the question is, what are the prerequisites to explore and experiment AR and VR in the classroom? So that's a very
Okay, this
interesting question.
very interesting question. If you were to ask me, being a very humanistic based person, I would say the first requirement is passion. That is the prerequisite. If you have the passion, if you have the interest, then you will start venture using AR or VR. And I would say that use the minimum efforts needed, which is the one that is available, that is free, the one that is simple objective, just to explore first. But of course, on top of everything, passion and interest should come first, no? I would say. Right.
Right. So, yeah, definitely. I think I would like to quote Alvin Toffler. A good teacher should be able to learn, unlearn, and relearn, right? So, we
Yeah.
have another question from Mr. Fazli. All right. So, his question is, do you have any suggestion, Doctor, for platform in downloading free 3D digital assets?
Alright, great. Is this Fazli the one that I know, or is a different Fazli? Okay. Kalau Fazli the one that I know, he is the Sifu. Okay. But let's just answer the questions. For 3D digital assets, as I mentioned, you have to go for application or software such as you can go into Blender if you can create one. If not, if you were to download free assets, you can go for Sketchfab. Of course, there are many other 3D models that you need to buy, but it is not very expensive. It can be as cheap as one USD, uh, still available to be downloaded. But of course, the free ones are also available. Yep.
Right.
Mm.
So thank you. I think it is pretty much cost effective. I think depends on the
Yes.
educator's budget and like how they want to leverage to their teaching and learning, right, Doctor? Right. So
Yes.
we have another question. All right. So some educators may feel apprehensive in using AR and VR. So maybe they are thinking it's kind of complicated for their learners. So what is your view in addressing this perception, Doctor?
I think looking at this issue, because we do understand we have a lot of limitations when it comes to new technology, and we do agree that one thing for sure is the skills, the teacher skills. But as I mentioned just now, it is always doable if you don't put too high expectations when you want to try new things. Begin with the easiest. uh, don't expect to build your 3D model on your own. Try to use the free ones, download the 3D model assets, and then you try to use available overlay images. Use the easiest one, begin with the easiest one with simple activity. So once you find it satisfying, you feel like, oh, this is interesting. I should look more, I should explore more and try with other lessons. And that is where the journey begins. Okay, so start with the easiest one. And probably if you think that creating one is quite challenging for you, I would say if you can have one software, you have one tools, you can have device. Maybe as for now, limitation is for the students to have the device, so teacher can prepare device, download one tools, like for example, Augment, for example. You bring device to class and ask your students, why don't you just try, have a look at this and try what you can do with that, and then let the students explore. And you'll find it interesting that the students are fast learners as compared to teachers. So we learn from the students at the same time actually. So we pick up the knowledge from our learners. Yeah, that would be another tips, I would say. And yes, use available sources with minimum effort, very minimum effort, I would say. That will be a good start for using AR and VR.
All
Yes.
right. So, taking a takeaway from what you just shared. So, the next question is about what lesson did you learn from your experience in using AR and VR in your lectures and other programs?
Okay, this is interesting because we've been trying this like since 2 3 years back, and I think for us especially, like myself, my expectation is very high. We want to do things which are complex. We don't want the basic substitution. If it is based on SMR, we want to go beyond like modification and redefinition, and therefore we tend to overlook the cognitive load of the students. So it is very important as a teacher. We need to also take into consideration when we want to use this AR and VR with our learners, what is the level of cognitive load that is acceptable to our learners. If their cognitive level is just understanding, okay, so we do simple activity using AR just for understanding. Same goes to remembering, same goes to analyzing and whatnot. That cognitive load is quite a challenge lah, I would say. Some things that I should always review and revise. I think management of time, students get excited using it, so we tend to in terms of coordinating time, that's quite challenging. My ability to use the technology is also challenged by the learners, especially when we showed them things. They said, no, no, that's not the way. By right, you should be using this and that. But take it positively. Let's say, especially I'm teaching these adult learners. So if they show a better skills, take it and learn from them. So those are the things that things that I think I'm currently reviewing and refining, as well as modifying a lot of things, upskillings and whatnot. Yeah.
All right, so thank you so much, Dr. Harwati. I think all of us have learned a lot from this sharing today. So we can sum up that in order to keep up with the future of technology, that all of us must be willing to change our old mindset into an open one towards innovation. So ladies and gentlemen, apart from joining this webinar, you are invited to join the ELTC micro course entitled The Introduction to Augmented Reality and Virtual Reality in English Language Teaching. So you can see on your screen the link, and please do join the course. So that's the end of our webinar for today. Thank you so much, Dr. Harwati, for accepting our invitation and sharing such valuable knowledge with all of us today. Thank you to all of our webinar participants for your cooperation, your engagement, and then your enthusiasm. And we hope that you will join the bandwagon and try out AR and VR for your English and language teaching. So that's the end of our webinar for today. Do not forget to join our next webinar entitled Gamified Learning with Classcraft on the 9th June 2022 at 9 a.m. Hope to see you soon in the next webinar. Take care and stay safe. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And goodbye.
Wassalam. Bye all. Thank you. Thank you for